President Biden and First Lady Dr. Joe Biden are on their way right now to New Orleans, where they will announce new funding grants for innovative cancer research technology that will be developed by medical research team at university with the goal of improving cancer surgery and treatment. The president and the first lady, we have a tour of Tulane University, and they will announce $150 million that will be distributed to 8 research teams at Medical University, including Vermont University, Rice University, and Johns Hopkins University, along with 5 other universities across the U.S. This is part of the Biden Cancer Moonshot program that was relaunched in 2022. It was originally launched in 2016. It's something that the president, who was then the vice president, after his son Bo Biden, after their son Bo Biden passed away from cancer in May 2015. And this is something that the First Lady have been working on for the last 2 years in partnership with various universities, including Columbia University, where they are working on innovative programs, partnering with medical team, including nurses, to improve patient outcome, improve the treatment of patient outcome through patient navigation program. They also partner with the National Institute of Health. Earlier this year, when President William Ruto and the First Lady of Kenya, Rachel Ruto, were here for their state visit, they told the First Lady and the First Lady of Kenya talked and spoke with researchers team at Johns Hopkins University regarding some of the innovative technology that they have been working on, and they are part of a pilot program that they are using in Africa, in Nigeria, as well as in Kenya. So this is not just a program for the US, it's a global program that the First Lady have been working hand in hand with other First Lady and medical team across the world to improve the outcome of cancer treatment and surgery. And it's also part of the Biden Moonshot program goal to significantly reduce the cancer death by 2047. Of course, this is 2 weeks ago when the president spoke to the nation, explaining why he decided to drop out of the presidential race. He said he will use the next 5 months to focus on policy as well as projects that will improve Americans' life. And this is part of that program. The $150 million will be distributed, as I mentioned, to 8 universities, and in the amount from $22 million, they will receive from $22 million to $25 million each to develop this innovative technology that will help detect cancer as well as improve cancer surgery outcome and treatment.
26 million people are in acute hunger. That's the equivalent of New York times 3, full of starving families and malnourished children. More than 10 million people have been forced to flee their homes due to violence, hunger, and deprivation. This is advance into the state. That's 750,000 people displaced in just 6 weeks. Sudan's healthcare system has collapsed. 2/3 of the population cannot go to a hospital or see a doctor. Heavy rains have flooded residential neighborhoods and displacement sites in recent weeks, including Kassala and North Darfur, increasing the risk of cholera and waterborne diseases. An entire generation of children is missing out on a second straight year of their education. Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, once the beating heart of the country, is in ruins. Mr. President, as you will hear from my colleague from the World Food Programme, our worst fears were confirmed last week. The Famine Review Committee concluded that famine conditions are present in Zamzam camp, close to El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur. This is the same camp that Médecins Sans Frontières warned about 6 months ago, where one child was dying every 2 hours from malnutrition. The Famine Review Committee also found the famine conditions are also likely present in other displacement camps and in and around the city. This announcement should stop all of us cold, because when famine happens, it means we are too late. It means we did not do enough. It means we, the international community, have failed. This is an entirely man-made crisis and a shameful stain on our collective conscience. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Council, hunger is not the only threat people are facing in Sudan. 480 days of conflict have pushed millions of civilians into a quagmire of violence, and with it, death, injury, and inhumane suffering.
On a separate story that we are also paying closer attention to, the Biden-Harris administration have significantly, they are working hand in hand right now with African nations, with President William Ruto, as well as other East African leaders, regarding bringing about an end to the ongoing humanitarian crisis that we see in Sudan and in South Sudan. Today, there is a meeting going on in Geneva to work out a peace agreement that we bring, as I said, bring an end. And the Biden-Harris administration also announced in the past couple of weeks, significantly announced funding to South Sudan as well as Sudan to be giving for programs that are working on humanitarian, improving the outcome and improving the life of people that have been displaced because of the ongoing war in Sudan, and people that have migrated to South Sudan. South Sudan, our audience will know that I spoke with the Minister of Finance of South Sudan earlier this year, and he called on the international community for assistance regarding improving food security, as well as to prepare later on this year. They are scheduled to hold an election this year. Right now, they have a transitional program, and they are working hand in hand to have their election later on this year. So this funding grant humanitarian assistance over almost $500 million that have been donated for humanitarian, to improve the humanitarian crisis in South Sudan and Sudan. On the other hand, at the UN Security Council, there is a call for a permanent seat for African country on the UN Security Council. And the Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield, in a remark, said, "We have talked about reforming the UN Security Council. We do so for the good of African nations, but we also do so to further the international peace and security for all, because we all benefit when African leaders are at the table."
Now it is upon all of us, all members of the United Nations, to chart the future for the next generation, to refine, reform, recalibrate, and as my UK neighbor reminded me last night, to strengthen this body, to ensure the Council is more fit for purpose and reflects the realities of today. And that includes ensuring that people across Africa are effectively represented here in the Security Council in this chamber. Of course, as you've heard, this is long overdue. Already home to over 1.2 billion people, half of whom are under the age of 19, Africa has the fastest growing population of any continent. By 2050, 1 in 4 people on the planet will be African. And here's what we know. African countries have long played and continue to play a critical role in strengthening peace and security in Africa and across the globe.
Again, this is part of what the presidents in the past 3.5 years have worked hand in hand to ensure that there is a representation of African nations, whether it is on the G20, pushing that the G20 include the African Union at the table, and also at the UN Security Council calling for the reform of the council to be more inclusive and have representation of African nations at the table. As she said, we all benefit when African leaders are part of the conversation at the table.